Josh McDaniels fired. How about that firing or what, man? This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Josh McDaniels being fired from the Las Vegas Raiders as they are underachieving yet again. The Raiders are naming Antonio Pierce as their interim head coach, which should excite some of the players on the roster. This move now marks the end of a brief era for the Raiders as they fire Josh McDaniels after 25 games as a head coach. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. How excited were you to see Josh McDaniels get fired by the Raiders? Honestly, I am very excited to see Josh McDaniels get fired. It was a well-deserved firing. I don't normally call for coaches to get fired in the middle of the season, but in the case of Josh McDaniels, they absolutely had to do that. They had to take drastic measures. And for Josh McDaniels to get fired twice on two different teams when it was in the middle of a season, that should speak volume to how people feel about Josh McDaniels as a person. Now look, I understand that there are plenty of bad football coaches in the NFL, but to see someone get fired not once but twice in the middle of the season, that tells me that guys hate working with Josh McDaniels. That tells me that he is awfully difficult to work with. And honestly, are we really surprised that Josh McDaniels is this difficult to work with of a person? Because Josh McDaniels lacks people's skills. This guy doesn't know how to communicate with his players effectively, doesn't get along with his assistants whatsoever. This guy's an arrogant SOB. This guy thinks that he's the smartest man in the room when actually he is the dumbest man in the room. And Josh McDaniels looks like he rode the coattails of Tom Brady in terms of his coaching success. I don't understand all these owners that keep trying to copy the Patriot way and hiring all these ex-Patriots assistants because of the fact that Bill Belichick has not been able to replicate the Patriot way without Tom Brady. Tom Brady was the Patriot way. What exactly was Josh McDaniels going to value for you at the table? And it's not even like Josh McDaniels is a nice person either. Josh McDaniels is supposedly difficult to work with. Josh McDaniels is not even a smart football head coach. What does he bring to the table? Because he damn sure ain't a motivator. He's a poor strategic game planner, and his defenses are before this year were generally horrible. And also, he's not a disciplinarian either. I mean, he tries to be, but nobody takes the guy seriously. Josh McDaniels is a clown, and I'm not saying that he can't be a good offensive coordinator. I think he needs to run back to New England. That seems to be the only place where he can even be functional as a coach in the NFL. If he went back to New England and became a coordinator, okay, fine, no problem there. It's not like the Patriots offense has been good without Josh McDaniels anyways. But as far as him being a head coach, yeah, that never should have even happened to begin with. And we're seeing guys like Eric Bieniemy and Steve Wilks getting stiffed for head coaching gigs. I know somebody's going to say, oh, Eric Bieniemy's resume is not perfect. Oh, Steve Wilks, what has he done outside of the Carolinas? But I'm saying we've seen guys that have had worse resumes on their hands get second and third chances. And Josh McDaniels is a classic example of that. We already saw what happened during his disastrous stint in Denver, okay? Year one, he starts out the year 6-0 in Denver. Then his team gets busted up for cheating because they get caught behind the cameras because they're trying to steal signs or whatever. And then they end up finishing 8-8, going in a massive collapse, and they end up missing the playoffs. And then in year two, this man drafted Tim Tebow. Yes, you guys heard me correctly. He drafted Tim Tebow in the first round for the Denver Broncos. And then he went 3-9 in Denver. He ended up getting fired after having full control power over there because he served as both the head coach and GM. And then he went back to the Patriots. He ended up riding the coattails of Tom Brady. And then he was supposed to get hired by the Indianapolis Colts in 2018, but guess what? He stiffed them too. He decided last minute, yeah, let me go ahead and bail on this coach job. That's not leadership from a head coach. That's a quitter before things even get started. When Josh McDaniels did what he did to the Indianapolis Colts, nobody should have even hired Josh McDaniels as a head coach, because how can we trust his word of commitment? How can we trust his word of being a good person? If he's already bailing for something simple like that, what's going to happen when the going gets tough? And despite that, the Las Vegas Raiders decide, yeah, let's go ahead and hire Josh McDaniels. Never mind the fact that an interim coaching Rich Bisaccia actually took the Raiders to the playoffs, and then, okay, he's joining a playoff team, so you're thinking, okay, Josh McDaniels, he's got to go ahead, fix some edges around the Raiders, and then maybe they can end up being better. But no, Josh McDaniels was like, nah, we're going to do things my way or the highway. And my way is the Patriot way. Never mind the fact that the Patriot way is actually an absolute failure without Tom Brady. So Josh McDaniels, he ends up going to the Raiders. They have a solid quarterback in Derek Carr. Now, I've never never really loved Derek Carr as much as everybody else has, but Derek Carr, he's a top 16 quarterback. Top half quarterbacks do not grow on trees. But you know what the man decided to do? He decided to go ahead and cut him. He didn't even think about trading him. He just flat out cut him. And then not only did he flat out cut him, he decided, let's go ahead and sign Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he's had a turnover issue in the past. Even though my offense needed less turnovers from the quarterback position, let me go ahead and sign even more turnover-worthy prone quarterback at the quarterback position in Jimmy Garoppolo. And waha, will you guess what? Jimmy Garoppolo leads the NFL in interceptions, even though he has only played in 6 games. How about that? That just shows you the stupidity of Josh McDaniels right there. And also, he pissed off the best player on the team in Davante Adams. So their GM, Dave Ziegler, he also got fired as well too. He ends up pulling a trade for Davante Adams, which is actually a pretty good idea. You know, you want to get a number 1 wide receiver on your team that helps out your quarterback. So they end up getting Davante Adams. He ends up enjoying a career year with Derek Carr at the quarterback position, but then they pull the rug under Davante Adams. They end up having his best friend Derek Carr get cut from the Raiders. They end up signing Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy that's not good at throwing deep passes whatsoever. Now, Garoppolo, don't get me wrong, he's a good quarterback. He can use the quick game really well, and he can run play action effectively. But Garoppolo is not a quarterback that's going to be able to drop back all game long and be able to throw deep passes, because that's not his game. That has never been his game. It will never be his game. And for Josh McDaniels to not realize that, I don't know how he didn't realize it. Either he didn't realize it, or he realized it and he said, who cares, because I'm the smartest man in the room, and watch what I do with Garoppolo, the quarterback position. This man has the ego of Kyle Shanahan, but his coaching resume is closer to somebody of Matt Rule. That is how bad Josh McDaniels was for the Las Vegas Raiders. This dude was pissing players off routinely. He couldn't get along with his assistants. He was losing. He was an asshole. I mean, why the heck should we employ you? Yeah, you might only be 3-5, so it might not look that bad record-wise, but you look at all that talent on the Raiders roster, and you're wondering, how is this dude underachieving on the Raiders? This Raiders team was a playoff team under Rich Bisaccia, an interim head coach. And if Rich Bisaccia was truly that good, he'd be a head coach in the NFL right now. But my point is, they were a playoff team under an interim head coach, and then for them to get Josh McDaniels, and not only has he turned this team upside down, he's basically torn it apart, and he couldn't even win, and he can't even get along with his players. When that happens, yeah, you need to get out. You know why Ron Rivera on the Washington Commanders has managed to survive for so long? Because he's a player's coach. He's a guy that can actually relate with his players. He's a guy that can actually relate with his assistants. He actually lets his assistants do his job. Josh McDaniels doesn't do that. On the other hand, Josh McDaniels has the mentality that he's the smartest man in the room, and he thinks that he knows more football than everybody else, when in fact he actually knows less football than everybody else. That's why he got fired. That's what the Las Vegas Raiders didn't tell you about Josh McDaniels. Yeah, you can see that his win-loss record was very poor on the Las Vegas Raiders, but they didn't tell you that he couldn't relate to the players and that he couldn't get along with other people. And when you don't have people skills, it's impossible to be a good head coach in the NFL. I don't care if you're the world's greatest play caller ever, but even if that was true, Josh McDaniels fell well short of that goal. Josh McDaniels was not even an average play caller. This dude was garbage as a play caller. This guy makes Frank Reich look like he's a great coach in the NFL, and that's saying something. I'm not saying that Frank Reich can't coach football in the NFL, but Frank Reich right now, he's on the hot seat on the Carolina Panthers, mainly because of the fact that the Carolina Panthers are 1-6, and Josh McDaniels, even though he's only 3-5, it's not like Josh McDaniels was exactly putting any value on the table. It's not exactly like he was doing good at people skills. It's not like he was doing good off the field, and he wasn't doing good on the field. This dude was providing no value whatsoever. He turned the team that had Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Davante Adams, Max Crosby as their core, and he went 6-11 with that team. Look, I'm not saying that Derek Carr is a good quarterback, but what I am saying is that if you have that type of core on your roster, that should be a playoff team 10 times out of 10. That is a really good Raiders team. Even this year, even with the screw-ups of Josh McDaniels, that was still a pretty good team that they fielded. I mean, they had a winning quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. They got Josh Jacobs on the franchise tag. They got Davante Adams still. They got Jacoby Myers. They got Hunter Renfrow. They got Max Crosby on the defensive side of the field. And they added Marcus Peters, who's been pretty good for the Raiders. When you look at it like that, you're wondering how the hell are the Raiders 3-5? But it's honestly because of their head coach. Their head coach is holding the players back, and now they named interim Antonio Pierce. This was poor management from top to bottom with Josh McDaniels. It was an absolute dumpster fire. You want to talk about a fly-out loser? That's Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is the definition of being a losing coach. This dude took a playoff team on the Las Vegas Raiders and turned them into garbage overnight. Now people think that the Las Vegas Raiders are a horrible football team, when in reality, they just had a horrible head coach in Josh McDaniels. Don't be surprised if the interim comes in for the Raiders and he actually starts winning some games, because that was how bad Josh McDaniels was for the Las Vegas Raiders. Hopefully Mark Davis is going to learn his lesson on who he hires the next time around, because hiring Josh McDaniels was an absolute disaster. If I had to give that a grade looking back, I'm giving that move an F-, because an interim coach took this team to the playoffs, and then they got Josh McDaniels, and he couldn't even turn this team into mediocrity. That's how bad Josh McDaniels was. He underachieved with all that talent on the roster. So that's why I was very excited to see Josh McDaniels get fired by the Raiders, as he was a terrible head coach for them. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I'm gonna shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That will be for the @Dustin Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video. Comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.